Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Adult Reading Roundtable Alternative RA program. We have a panel here who are going to share some fun and creative ways to match readers with their next read, including some BuzzFeed-like quizzes, games, tarot card reading, and beer pairings. We hope you leave with some ideas and inspiration to take back to your libraries. We'll have time for questions at the end, but you can also put them in the chat as we go. With that, I'm going to pass it on to our first speaker, who's going to share how to build a virtual RA website.
Hello, my name is Ann Bailey, and I am the Youth Services Assistant Manager at the Alsop Merrimack Park Public Library. Today, I'm going to talk about how our library make a virtual Reader's Advisory website and quiz, and how your library can too. Next slide, please. As librarians, we offer Reader's Advisory constantly. Sometimes we do this in person with a face-to-face interview, a book club, or display. Other times, we do this virtually with social media posts, virtual author visits, and online forums where patrons tell us their interests and we email them book recommendations. Next slide, please. Offering virtual Reader's Advisory is a great service for patrons. Patrons who are homebound, or too busy to come to the library, or are too nervous to ask for Reader's Advisory at the desk can still access these services. That said, it does have some downsides. Many of the methods, like social media posts, recommend the same book to everyone, regardless of the patron's individual likes. And online surveys can give patrons individualized recommendations, but they do come with a waiting period. Just like our friend with the skeleton here, patrons do have to wait until they actually get the book. Next slide, please. To improve our virtual Reader's Advisory, my library created a free virtual Reader's Advisory website. These are a great fit for any library and can be done on any budget, even without coding experience. What you need to get started is an account with a free website builder, a computer, and knowledge of your library's collection. If you want to add an interactive quiz to your website, you will need an account to build that too, but we'll get to that later. Next slide, please. Start by deciding who you want to target with your Reader's Advisory website. One of the great things about these websites is that they can be as general or as specific as they want. I am a youth services librarian, so the website I made is for kids from birth through 8th grade. But you might want to make a website for teenagers or adults. Or maybe instead of focusing on an age range, you want to focus on a specific genre, like mysteries or romance novels. Those possibilities are endless, and it's those endless possibilities that will make this so useful for your staff. Next slide, please. Once you have chosen your audience, it is time to start building the website. I use Google Sites to build and maintain my library's website. I chose Google Sites because I like that Google will also provide free analytics, and our library already had a Google account. Of course, there are a ton of great options out there, and most of them work very similarly. No matter which you choose, you will start with a blank slate similar to this one. Start by choosing a theme to make sure your website is consistent from page to page. Next slide, please. Once you have your theme, you can start adding additional web pages and subpages. How many pages you want to add will depend on how you want to organize your website. In my department, we have a few different kinds of books. And since my patrons are already used to thinking of the collection in that way, I made one main page for each type of book and then subpages for genres within that type. So when creating your website, think about how your patrons like to browse the collection. Do they like to browse by age range, genre, type of book, and then mimic that virtually? After you have decided what pages and subpages you want, it is time to start working on the homepage. And I know what you're thinking. Shouldn't that be the other way around? In my experience, it is much easier to make a homepage after you have decided what pages you want. Remember, building a homepage is similar to making a map, in that it tells your patrons where to go. But you can't draw a map until after you've seen the location. So make your pages and then the home page. Next slide, please. I have found that patrons respond best to clickable images rather than words with links. After all, many of the websites we use every day, like Amazon, use images to get a user's attention. When choosing an image to lead a patron to another web page, choose one that is both eye-catching and clearly conveys what the web page will be. For my website, I chose book characters that are well known by my patrons. This helps them understand what each page will contain, even if they can't see the actual words written on the screen. You also want to make sure you add alt text for each image and link. Alt text makes your website accessible to patrons using a screen reader. The screen reader will read the text to your patron, so even if they cannot physically see the image, they can still understand what the image is and what it means. If your image is also a link, you'll want to use the title of the web page the link goes to as the alt text. And if the image is purely decorative, like the background of a website header, you can mark it as a decorative image. Next slide, please. After you are done adding images, it is time to start adding text. This text could be an introduction to your website for patrons, using it for the first time, so it can be a simple explanation of the site. When choosing a font, make sure to choose one that is clear and easy to read. The good news is that the themes that come with website builders are usually designed with legibility in mind. A great way to check if your text is visible is to use the Firefox web browser. Firefox comes in with built-in accessibility tools that you can use to make sure you meet accessibility standards. Simply highlight the text you want to check, then right-click and choose Inspect Accessibility Properties. If you see a green checkmark, like that one at the bottom of the screen, you are good to go. Next slide, please. Now it is time to start making the individual subpages. In my opinion, this is the fun part of making the website because it's when you get to actually do Reader's Advisory. The first decision to make is how many books you want to feature on each page. I have found that 6 books is a good number to go with. It gives patrons some variety without being overwhelming. If you have too many books on each web page, patrons just won't look at them. For each book, I usually list the title, author, call number, description, and book cover. I also have the book cover function as a link to that book's page in the library's online catalog. This way, patrons can easily place a hold on the books they want without having to navigate the catalog. Like with any display, diversity, equity, and inclusivity must be among the top concerns. When choosing titles to highlight on your website, think about who is being represented. Make sure that everyone can find themselves in your website, just like you want every patron to be able to find themselves in your collection. And once you have created a subpage, go back to the main web page for that category and add an image to be the link. This way, when patrons access that page, they can see all the different options within it. I usually choose one of the book covers I feature on that subpage to be the image. This gives patrons a clear sense of what kinds of books will be featured on that page. Next slide, please. Once you have your pages set, it is time to start testing the website. On Google Sites, you can do this by clicking the preview icon on the top right of the screen. This lets you interact with your site before making any changes. So make sure to check for typos and to test every link, both those that lead to other internal pages and external pages, like your library's catalog. Depending on what website builder you use, you can also check how your site will function on different types of devices. If you know that most of your patrons like to use a smartphone to access your website, check to see how it will look on a smartphone. Next slide, please. Now that the web pages are done, if you want, you can add a Reader's Advisory quiz. A Reader's Advisory quiz is like a combination of a Reader's Advisory survey and a social media post advertising a book. Like with a survey, patrons get to enter their likes and dislikes, but like a social media post, they get an immediate recommendation. That's right. Rather than a patron waiting for you to get back to them, they can immediately get at any time a book recommendation tailored to them. There are 2 main types of quizzes that you can create, text-based and image-based. A text-based quiz is similar to a BuzzFeed quiz or other social media posts and has the patron make choices by clicking in radio buttons. They can easily be made for free using something like Google Forms or SurveyMonkey. Image-based quizzes use graphics and have interactive sounds and other elements to attract the user. They do require a little bit of coding knowledge, but if you don't have any, don't panic. With block coding, anyone can easily create one of these quizzes. Next slide, please. No matter what kind of quiz you want to build, the most important thing is to start by thinking how logically you will get to each book recommendation. I like to start by drawing a small physical map that shows what questions and answers lead to follow-up questions. The more follow-up questions you ask, the more specific of a book you can recommend, but your quiz will also be a lot longer and be more complicated to create. It's okay to start with a simpler quiz and build up to more complicated ones later on. Also, keep in mind that platforms may come with their own limitations. They may only let you add so many questions or sections. I usually start by asking patrons what kinds of books they want to read. A picture book, beginning reader, fiction, nonfiction. After they have chosen the kind of book, I'll give them 3 or 4 different topics. For example, let's say a patron responded they wanted to read a picture book. They could then choose if they want to read about sports, magic, animals, or food. I'll then give another 3 or 4 subtopics within that topic. Let's say they wanted to read about an animal. They could choose if they wanted a dog, a cat, or a badger. Depending on what animal they want, they would get a different book recommendation. If they chose cat, they would be recommended the title Cat Problems by Jury John. But if they chose badger, they would instead be recommended Waking for Snow by Marsha Diane Arnold. And just like with your overall Reader's Advisory website, you can decide how specific or general you want your quiz to be. You want to make sure that you have enough different topics so you can have a few levels of question on each topic. The more levels you have, the more specific of a recommendation you can make. But it will also take longer. As a library, you'll want to decide what is the best balance between staff time and time to create and use of your patrons. Next slide, please. To code the image-based quiz, start by choosing a background. You can choose one of Scratch's built-in backgrounds, or you can upload your own. You also will need different sprites. Sprites are what Scratch calls interactive characters on the screen. Let's say I was building a mystery Reader's Advisory quiz. Going along with that theme, I've chosen a nighttime city as the background and a detective to be my main character to talk to the user and direct them to the quiz, and magnifying glasses to be the options they can click. Next slide, please. Then, code what the main character will say. If using Scratch, you'll always want to start with when green flag clicked, because that will let the program know to start running. Then, use the speech box to have the detective ask questions to the user. Make sure to explain how to use the quiz so first-time users know what to do. Then, you want to broadcast a message. Broadcast messages will not be visible from the user's point of view, but it will tell the computer program what to do. In this case, it will tell the magnifying glasses to appear on screen and what answer options to say. You can have as many messages as you want and name them whatever you want, but you will have a lot of them, so make sure to keep track of them in a way that makes sense to you. Next slide, please. Then have each answer option be its own separate sprite. In this example, here is the code for the magnifying glass if a patron wants a kid's mystery book. Make sure to use the hide block to have the magnifying glass not appear when the program begins. Then, use the when I receive message block to have the magnifying glass appear and say what answer option it is. You will want to have the magnifying glass send a broadcast message when it is clicked. This will tell the other magnifying glasses that were not chosen to hide and prompt the detective to ask the next question. I also like to have it play a sound effect. That's not necessary, but it is a fun catch. And then make sure to also have code to have this answer option disappear if another answer is chosen. For each magnifying glass, you will have multiple separate blocks of code, so I find it helpful to keep them organized in neat lines. Next slide, please. Then it's time to code the rest of the question and answer options. For each level, you are going to follow the same pattern. You will code the detective to receive a message from the last answer, which will make the detective ask the next follow-up question. Then have the detective broadcast another message that tells that question's answer options to appear. For each answer option, you need code telling them to appear, show their option, broadcast a message if clicked, and hide if not selected. Next slide, please. The good news is that this code is basically the same for each answer option in question. It sounds overwhelming, but once you get into a rhythm, you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Next slide, please. Once you have the level of question and answers coded, it's time to code the actual recommendation. As always, start by having the detective broadcast a message telling the last answer option to hide. Then, have the detective repeat back to the patron the answers they gave. This will let the patron know that the quiz really is responding to their answers, and then reveal the book's title, author, and call number. I also have it broadcast a message to show the book's cover and a QR code that leads to the book's record in the library's online catalog. You can generate a QR code image for free from tons of different websites. I also like to have it play a drum roll sound effect. Again, not necessary, but fun. Next slide, please. Of course, that is only one way that you can code it. My library chose to use Scratch because it's the same coding language we use in computer coding programs with our kids, and we want it to be consistent. You could make that in any coding language. You also can try to use AI to software the code for the quiz for you. However, I would be sure to ask it to create code in a language that you understand, so you can check its output. Also, if you do that, make sure that it does not start accidentally adding titles into the quiz, especially ones that either A, your library does not own, and in some cases, does not exist. But let's say you don't want to do any coding. You also can make one entirely being text-based with platforms like Google Forms or SurveyMonkey. In this example, I'll be using Google Forms. Slide, please. To start, add a title and introductory section explaining how to use the quiz. The good thing about a text-based quiz is that most patrons have used them before on social media, so what to do is pretty self-explanatory. Next slide, please. Then it's time to write the questions. For each question, select multiple choice from the drop-down menu. On the right side next to the question, there is a button that looks like an equal sign that says Add Section. Click that to create a section for each answer option. You can then name the sections. Patrons will be able to see those names, so make sure they make sense. Then scroll back up to the question you wrote, and at the bottom are 3 dots. Click on those dots, and then choose where it says Go to Section based on answer. Once that is enabled, you will see a drop-down menu next to each answer option. Choose the section that meets the answer option. And like with the image-based quizzes broadcast messages, this makes sure that each answer is leading to the correct follow-up question. Next slide, please. If you want to have more than just text, you also can add an image to each answer option. To do that, click the image icon next to the answer option and upload an image that matches that option. This can be a good way to combine images that will attract a user's attention with the simplicity of a text-based quiz. Next slide, please. Like with the image-based quiz, you want to repeat the same pattern of creating multiple choice answers, making a separate section for each answer option, and going to each section based on the answer for every question you write. You'll also want to press the preview button and keep testing the quiz as you go. This makes it much easier to catch and fix mistakes if you accidentally send something to the wrong section. Next slide, please. Then it's time to set the recommendations. Like with the question, each recommendation should be its own section. Add a title section to type in the book's title, author, and call number. I'd also like to make a link that goes to the book's record in the library's online catalog. Then add an image of the book's cover. Next slide, please. Once you have your quiz made, the last step is to embed the quiz into your Reader's Advisory website. Make a separate page on your website just for the quiz. Then you can embed the quiz into your web page. On the right-hand side of the screen, where it says Embed, click that, and then you'll see a box that says Embed Code. For the image-based quiz, click on the Share button and and see where it says Copy Embed. Copy that and paste it into Google Sites. Then you'll be able to move the quiz anywhere you want on the screen. Next slide, please. For the text-based quiz, you will follow a similar format. When you click to send someone the form in Google Forms, copy the embed code and paste it into the field in Google Sites and move it where you want it. Next slide, please. And that's all there is to it. Making a virtual Reader's Advisory website and Reader's Advisory quiz is a simple, low-cost thing you can do to improve your Reader's Advisory services. Your patrons will appreciate the immediate access that these services provide. If you have any questions, my email address is on the screen. Thank you so much.
Okay, everybody, I'm up next. I'm Tegan. I am a shaman and tarot card reader. So I am not of the library world, but I am library adjacent. My sister used to work at the Algonquin branch. So that's how I ended up here today, to give you some new ideas. So tarot and books, what the cards are trying to tell you to read. Okay, so how I kind of did this was in a standard tarot card deck. For those of you who may not be familiar with that at all, there are always 78 cards. So if you're either buying something, borrowing something, bringing your own deck, make sure they are not oracle cards, because otherwise they will not correlate with the slides that I made. They have to be tarot. And since there's 78 cards in a standard deck, what I did was I broke them up into major arcana cards and minor arcana cards. So for the major arcana, each major arcana card has its own individual genres or ideas for people to use as guidance. And then for the minor arcana, there are always 4 different suits, and they're always the same. And each suit has its own recommendation. Like I said, all the tarot cards will be the same. And as we go through the slides, you'll see I have numbers on them, above them. So even though the art will most likely look different on your deck, the numbers and the name should be the same. Okay. First 3 we have here. The Fool is always the first card in the deck, and he's all about taking chances and taking a leap of faith. So if someone pulls that, it's telling them to do like a blind date with a book, or have someone else pick for them, and they just kind of go from there and let someone else pull the reins here for a minute. Next, we have Magician. I went kind of literal with this one. It's telling you or whoever to read a fantasy book or something with witches, warlocks, things of that nature. And then the last one on this slide is the High Priestess. She is all about like your inner workings and calling your own power. So I said, reading a self-empowering book or anything that you feel empowered by is a good option. Next is the Empress. She is all about divine feminine energy. So this is saying, pick a book with a strong female lead. And her counterpart here is the Emperor. He is divine masculine energy. So that's telling you or whoever to read a book with a strong male lead. And then next we have the Hierophant. And that card is all about learning and possibly looking up to somebody. So I said, reading a book to either start a new hobby or learn a new skill, or maybe you've picked up a new hobby or skill recently and just to keep going with that. So more of a nonfiction route for that one. Next, we have the lovers. This one's pretty literal. So I put romance genre and spice level up to you or the patron. There's quite a sliding scale out there. So that part they can pick themselves. Next is chariot. I went with mythology of any culture, any time frame that someone wants. And then we have strength. I went with an athlete memoir or biography because a lot of times these athletes really require physical strength and mental strength. Next, for our major arcana cards, we have the Hermit. And this is all about like going inward and kind of isolating sometimes. So I did something more along the lines of poetry or more self-discovery. Next is the Wheel of Fortune. And the Wheel of Fortune, while it signifies good luck, it also talks about transitions and the turning of the wheel. So I paired it with a coming of age story or some other like life transition story, coming into motherhood or moving through life after great loss or something of that nature. And then last on this slide, we have justice. We're going to do crime genre, whether that's fiction or nonfiction. Okay, so these cards are all about possibly, might seem slightly taboo to some people, or it's really pushing people out of their comfort zone, possibly. So first we had the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man is all about seeing things from a different perspective. So I said a genre that someone doesn't normally read. If romance scares you, go and check out a spicy romance book and see how it makes you feel. And then we have death. If someone pulls the death card, tell them not to panic. It's fine. This is just saying to read a book about the afterlife or possibly about the soul, or, if you've ever heard of like a medium, you can pick up a book a medium has written and see from their point of view. And then next we have temperance. And this is telling someone to read about other cultures, other religions, other ceremonies from different parts of the world, really just trying to expand people's horizons a little bit. Okay, another one, don't panic. If you or someone else picks the devil, or just pairing it with the horror genre. And I know plenty of people like to read horror. Next, we have Tower. That's telling you to reread a book that made you cry. It could be a happy cry, or it could be a sad cry. It's really just trying to get you to kind of get in touch with those emotions. And then last on this slide, we have the Star. So this person or you are going to read either sci-fi or astrology or astronomy, depending on kind of what you're feeling, what your vibe is. Okay, the last four of the major arcana cards. We have the Moon, which is all about kind of this mystery around us in our subconscious. So I did the mystery genre. Next is the Sun. So this is telling you or a patron to reread either your favorite book or to pick up a classic. And then next we have Judgment. This one I just did historical fiction because I feel like any historical fiction book I've read, people were very judgy, so seems pretty fitting. And then the last major arcana is the World. The World is all about completion and like a circle coming around again. And so I just put, read a completed series so that when that person starts the first book, if they want to keep reading, they know that there's the ending there waiting for them. And as far as like if you do this for the library, it is an option to just do it with the major arcana cards. Getting a deck, just pulling those 22 cards out and just using those. But in this next slide, if you want to use the whole deck, I will show you how I kind of broke down for all the rest of the cards. So these are for the minor arcana cards that can be either taken out altogether or they can be pulled on their own or with the major arcana cards. So if someone pulls a pentacle card, whether it's, there's a bunch of different numbers going up in the pentacles, any pentacles is telling you to read the physical book. If it's possible to check out a physical book and read it. Swords or knives, depending on what deck you use, sometimes these words are kind of interchanged. But either way, it's telling that person or you to carve out more time to read. Maybe it's just taking a back seat and that happens, but we got to get back on board with reading. Next is grails or cups. So this is telling you to pick a book that you can let yourself really emotionally connect to, whether it's with the character, the story itself, the author. and really kind of get into that empathetic space. And then wands, contrary to the entire point of this presentation, if someone picks wands, and especially if you have them repick and they keep picking wands, this is telling them or you to listen to your own inner guidance. What do you want to read? What do you need to read? And honestly, if that keeps coming up, it's probably extends outside of just reading books, but that's kind of where the cards are trying to lead them. Okay, last slide here is just in the end, it's really what you or the person feel connected to. If someone draws the horror genre, draws the devil card, and they're like, absolutely not, then that's fine. Have them repick. You know, this isn't set in stone. And here's my contact info. My email is tarotwithtegan@gmail.com, or my Instagram and Facebook is Tarot with Tegan. You can always message me there as well if you have any questions or anything like that.
Great. I'm up next. Hi, I'm Sarah Kovac. I'm the Adult Services Director at the LaGrange Park Public Library, and I'm going to talk about some in-person activities you can do in your library using physical items. So the ideas I'm going to share with you are fun and interactive. They can be made with minimal materials and time. Some of them only require pencil and paper. However, you can get as fancy or as simple as you like. I made the designs here with Canva, but you could really just get out a piece of paper and a pen for some of them if you want. They can be used at service desks or set out throughout the library on displays or by the catalog. You could also use them outside of the library at outreach events. When used at the service desk, they make really good conversation starters. I found sometimes when I have someone coming up to the desk asking for a reading recommendation, and I ask them what they want to read or what they're in the mood for today, sometimes they tend to close up and get a little shy. I think maybe people are afraid we're going to judge them for their reading tastes. So these activities give patrons a way to talk about their preferences in a way that takes the pressure off and helps them feel not so on the spot. And these activities can be tailored for different age groups, and you can use different themes depending on the time of year or what you have going on at the library at the time. So the first activity I have here is the bookish fortune teller. Some of you might have made these fortune tellers when you were a kid. It's a paper game that reveals your fortune based on your choices. They're really easy to make. If you can just search online for paper fortune teller, and there are tons of instructions out there. So in this case, the fortunes are book recommendations. So I have one that I made. I can kind of show you how it works is for this one, I used my library's colors, and then the person picks a color. So let's say they pick blue, then you say BLUE, and then depending on the numbers, they pick a number. So I'm going to say they picked 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then they pick another number. So let's say they choose 5. So this one I have, your literary destiny lies in a genre you've never tried. So from there, you can use that. You can continue the reader's advisory interview and find out something that they might like to read. You could also put specific titles in it, although if they're checked out, they might be checked out. And I kind of think it's nice since it's in the library to send them home with a book in their hand. So if you do keep the fortunes more vague, then you're more likely to be able to send them home with a book that was on the shelf. So the next activity is another nostalgic paper game. Some of you might recognize this classic MASH game. In the version you might remember, you list out things of like who your crushes are, for who your future spouse will be, maybe your possible profession, maybe the car you're going to drive. And then the MASH stands for whether you will live in a mansion, apartment, shack, or house. So in the circle, you draw a spiral. Sometimes you could also do check marks until your friend tells you to stop. You count the lines and use that number to eliminate the options. So if your number was 3, you eliminate every third option until there's only 1 in each category. So in this case, I created a MASH game with romance tropes to predict your next book plot. You could also do this with mystery or horror, or you could let the patron fill it out themselves. I think it's a great way to have a conversation about likes and dislikes. For example, they might end up with the flying dragon for their transportation, and that could lead them to talk about that they love fantasy, they're not interested at all, or maybe they're willing to give it a try. And then here I just along the bottom added in some recommendations and the specific tropes that they have. And then finally, I have some games of chance. These require a little bit more in the way of supplies. On the right, I made a dice game where the patron rolls the dice and gets a recommendation for the type of book they can read. Again, they roll the dice, they get the option, and you can use that to kind of guide the conversation. Another idea is spin the wheel. There are dry erase wheels that you can get where you can write down different options. More than likely, your library might already have one in a closet with the marketing supplies. In our case, we have one in our children's department. And then another option is to have patrons pull from a jar. This one's great for a display because it's easy to discard the paper for the book that's been checked out. You can also use different colors for different genres, so people have the option to pick the genre they like if they want. So thanks so much for listening. Here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments.
Okay, this is me. My name is Rachel Hoover. I'm an adult services librarian at the Thomas Ford Memorial Library in Western Springs, and I am going to talk about pairing beer with books. Next slide, please. So, beer and books, it's not the most obvious pairing at first glance. More often, we think of a good book alongside coffee or tea or even a glass of wine at the end of the day. But in this case, I had a program that inspired me to put them together. It was called You Can Brew It, and it was about learning how to homebrew beer. The speaker was Scott Poynton, and Scott might be familiar to some of you if you either had the program or because you know him as the director of the White Oak Library. So this was the first time we had a program like this. I wanted to give it a little bit of a promotional boost, and I settled on doing a book display. So I initially thought about going the sort of like cookbook route, food and beverage, but I decided to step outside of that and do something a little bit different. I was already pretty familiar with craft beers, and personally, I kind of love when I have a chance to curate a little vibe for myself and would pick out a beer that coordinated with whatever I was watching or playing or listening to. So I thought this could extend to reading as well. Next slide, please. So I looked for craft beers with names that I thought I could easily coordinate with either a single title or a list of books. I just focused on the theme or vibe. I'm sure there are craft beer experts out there who could delve really deep into matching tastes and tone, but in my case, I just kind of focused on the basic themes the same way I would if I were just doing it for myself. I already knew some beers that I could use based on my own experience, but I did pick some of my friends' brains for ideas as well. If you're looking for inspiration, one place you can get it is at your local Binny's or a similar liquor store where they have a big craft beer selection. You can kind of just browse everything and see what stands out to you. You can also use websites like Beer Advocate or Untapped to discover beers to use. If you have a local brewery in town, that's a fantastic place to go. Plus, while you're there, you could talk to them about partnering for programming, either having them over to the library or bringing your patrons to them for like a book club or trivia night. So, killing two birds with one stone in that case. Next slide, please. So these are examples of the bookmarks that I made to go with the display. On each of them, I included the beer and some details about it. And like I said, with either a single book or a group of books. On the back, I have the program information in the middle. So on these examples here, you'll see that I paired World War Z with Three Floyd's Zombie Dust. And I did include details about the tastes in the beers and the ABV and everything, because if you're into craft beers, that can be very important to you. And plus, the manufacturers sometimes have really fun descriptions. So, like with Zombie Dust, they talk about the intensely hopped and gushing undead pale ale will be one's only respite after the zombie apocalypse. The other example I have here is pairing the Historian with Great Lakes Nosferatu, which is a very perfect beer for the October season. Next slide, please. These are two other examples that I did that have a list of books. So I did Pipeworks End of Days with a collection of dystopian fiction. And then I have Goose Island, Bourbon County paired with Southern Gothic fiction. And you can do, any kind of genres, any kind of themes that you want to do. The important thing is finding the beer that is going to actually pair with it. Next slide, please. So this is just the finished display that I had. I did collect some empty beer bottles to use in the display, empty clean beer bottles, and that made it more eye-catching because it's really hard to ignore seeing a bunch of beer bottles in an odd place like the library. We got a lot of people that did double takes kind of as they passed by, which is great. That's what we wanted to get their attention. The program that we had was great. I don't have the actual attendance number because it was a while ago, but we had 16 people registered, which is pretty good for us. We're a smaller library, so if I get 16 people, that's awesome. And if any of you also had this program, it brought in a little bit of a different demographic than usual. It was more men and it skewed a little bit younger. And I think the display being something different and unexpected in the library helped draw attention to that. Next slide. So while craft beers offer probably the widest variety of matchable names and themes, it's not your only option for beverage-based reader's advisory or displays. There's a lot of other things you can do. You could match beach drinks with beach reads, flavored cocktails and mocktails for culinary mysteries. There are craft ciders, which will give you fruit flavors to play around with, but some have fun names, just like craft beers. So one I included here is Schilling's Emerald City Blackberry Pear Cider, and that would be a great match with Wicked if you're promoting the books alongside the film later this year. There is also a pretty solid selection of non-alcoholic craft beers, so you could be inclusive of sober patrons. And one of the examples here is Go Brewing's Suspended in a Sunbeam Pills. The name is a reference to a quote from Carl Sagan, and the art is reflective of that. So you could easily match it with one of his books or any science fiction set in space. Craft sodas are another non-alcoholic option. They typically stick to standard beverage names like root beer, cola, cream soda, but there are exceptions. So Sprecher is one of the major soda manufacturers, and they do special releases for some video games, Assassin's Creed or Doom. Plus, they have a Chicago-style root beer and Green River that could be paired with books set in Chicago. So in some of these cases, it might take some work to find enough for a full display, but you could also do a combination of craft beers, drinks, and sodas that all fit with a desired theme. So if you are doing a display about Chicago, those Sprecher sodas would fit right in with beers from Chicago craft breweries like Revolution or Goose Island. So here I have some other programming tie-ins. If you want to pair in a program with your reader's advisory or display, there's a lot of different options out there. Home brewing, of course, is the one that I did. You could also, like I mentioned earlier, partner with your local brewery to do some programs with them. If you're looking for cooking classes, Chef Cherie Slattery does brews and bread. We haven't had that specific program from her, but we've had her do a bunch of her other programs, and she's great. Kristen Slick from Classroom Kitchen also has an Oktoberfest cooking class. You could go the route of a mixology presentation. One that we have had is herbal mocktails with Marcy from Backyard Patch Herbs. That was a really fun class and people really enjoyed it. They got to sample the mocktails. You could also do like a cocktail mocktail take-home kit and just include some reading suggestions that go along with the cocktail or mocktail that you chose. All right, next slide. That's it from me. Thank you so much. And if you would like to contact me, you can reach me at rachel@fordlibrary.org.
Okay, I would be next. My name is, let me share my screen. See if I know how to do this. My name is Carrie Stewart. I work at the Algonquin Library, and Anne showed you guys how to do the choose your own adventure quiz thing, the back side of it. So I made one and I'm going to show you the front side or the what your patrons would see. And so what I did was kind of, since it's starting to get cold out, who wants that? So I did kind of a choose your own reading adventure. So I set it up to where you're in a tiny cabin. You hate being there. You need to get out. You need to go find another book because you've read all the books that you've can. So you're going to go into town and see if you can find some new stuff. So hit next. And then this is when you get the first options you can throw out. So all the pictures that I used from, I believe it's Adobe, and they have the free images that you can use. And there's so many you can pick from. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's great because they're all free. So they already have the license and everything that you can use. So as you walk into town, you see a cozy bakery, the Velvet Crumb. It looks so warm and inviting with so many tasty treats. What do you want to do? And so I gave them 3 separate options. And then from those options, they will branch out even more, like how Anne's cool little chart showed. And so I'm going to do the middle one. Keep walking. You think you heard a scream further down the road. You want to investigate. So go to next. And you swear the scream came from this house. Lights are on, so someone must be home. And then here are more 3 options. You knock on the door, you want to make sure everyone's okay. Do you walk around the back of the house? You just peek in the windows to see if everyone's okay, or you keep walking. It's so nice and pretty out. So I'm a little, curious George here. I want to walk around to the back of the house. I just want to, peek it and make sure everything's okay. And so bam, here's your what I, we'll get. So phew, looks when someone left the TV on. As you turn around to leave, you see the Homer left a book on the back step. It's a cozy mystery, A Murder for Miss Hortense by Mel Pennant. How fitting, since you thought you were Jessica Fletcher there for a second. So call back to, Murder, She Wrote. So then I give just a description of what the book is about. And then I also give a cover of the book. And this is also a great way to put some DEI in here, some authors of color, and you sneak it in. It's always fun to do that. And so the next, okay, so I have your book. I'm done warming up. I'm going back. I'm all excited. So here's my comfy chair. So this is where I can put it to where, you know what, I didn't want that book, or I've already read that book. You can click, try a different path, and that will take you back to the beginning. If you want to place a hold on one of these books, you can click the second one, and you could give me your library card number, your information, and where you want to pick it up, and I can put it on hold for you. If you like to see more passive programs, click here. The one thing that's really cool about Google Forms is that you are able to see what every single person has clicked on. So if you click that one, I can clearly see you like this, you want to try a different way, a different setting. It's also great. And then if you just want this silly thing to end, you click here. So I want to try a different path. You click next, and boom, it takes you right back to the beginning. So for all you horror lovers out there who know who Baba Yaga is, she is the great Slavic witch. That house has chicken feet on it. I'm not messing around with it. So we're going to go this way. And then this will lead you to a path, strange lights. I'm going to walk towards them and hit next. And there you go. Here's your sci-fi that you get. You got sucked up into the spaceship. That's what you call an out of this world recommendation. So this is, I try to do every single genre. In the beginning part, if you go into the bakery, I did some bakery cookbooks. There's a part where I go farther down and I sit by a fire, and that's, some romance. So you can really go crazy with it. And then, okay, you know what? I'm done. I want this silly thing to end. And then you get a picture of me as when I dressed up as Teddy Roosevelt for a book club that I had. So with my name and info. So that is that. And then also what's pretty, I'll show you guys the other side. So this is the side you would see when you're making it. So this is where you would, like Anne talked about, where you pick your sections. So this can get where it can get kind of confusing, where you have to remember where to go and whatnot. So it's really good to, map your stuff out before you actually do it, and where you add your pictures in and all of that fun stuff. So here's the cookbook that I did. And then here's the romance that I did. Of course, it's at a bakery. Here's a thriller, a cozy mystery. This one is a historical fiction. This one's a memoir. Sorry if this is dizzying to anybody. And then here's Horror, the Whistler, good old Nick Medina. I'm totally pushing for that. He's actually one of our patrons in Algonquin. This book just came out last Tuesday. Highly recommend. So that was the horror pick. Here's the sci-fi. This was fantasy. And then that was all of them. And you can literally do this. You can do this with movies. You can do it with just one genre in general. You don't have to do multiple genres. You can really actually do it in anything you want to do. So that was the front side, back side. And then if you come up to the forms when it goes live, you're then able to see your responses. So of course it doesn't have any. But it will show, you can make it on a spreadsheet and you'll be able to see who signed up for it. Because I know we've done things in the past where if you sign up, you could enter to win a gift card, kind of a way to get people to do it. That was a locked room mystery I did so people could learn how to use our catalog. It did not go very well. I was very sad for our patient. So maybe I need to do that one again to spruce up on how to use our catalog. So this is pretty much all that I have. Does anybody have any questions? I know we're like super early. We really flew through that because it is only 2:52. Does anybody want to share, with maybe something that they're doing that they have found really good to share with everybody else? Or again, like I said, any comments or questions, anything like that? Anyone? No, nothing. Nobody has anything that's been working really well for them that they want to share, or any problems with doing certain things? I mean, that works too. We'll be just finished really, really early. Okay, Rebecca said that we did do a fortune teller thing at an event and had 40 interaction in 2 hours. Wow, that's awesome. And I agree with everybody else that put in the chat that I'm sure Sarah can too about having to remember how to fold those little guys. Always so much fun. That's great. That's awesome. And that's such an easy passive thing. And so many people get so excited because you haven't seen them since, middle school. Same thing with the MASH. That's take me back. I should be married to Leonardo DiCaprio, but whatever. Anything else? No questions, comments? Because if not, we'll end an hour early and then you guys have to go back to work, but whatever. No. Do any of my other presenters have anything else they want to add or comment? Nope. Awesome. Thank you. Yes, this was really fun to make. Again, very easy. You just kind of have to think out of the box at first. And then once you start, you really rolled with it. And I like to thank Anne and Rachel and Tegan for hopping on board with me and Carrie and Sarah. Me, Carrie, and Sarah. Yeah, sorry. My name's Carrie too, and she's Carrie. It gets very confusing. So thank you everybody for coming. It was really great. I'm glad you guys got a lot out of it. And yeah. And again, don't forget to contact Tegan. I'm going to plug for her because she's my friend. She's absolutely amazing. She will come and do programs for you guys. She did a reading for me, and it was awesome. So yeah. Anything else? Less, and then I think other Carrie has the power to stop recording and end our presentation.